You guys asked for some budget gaming laptops, and so today, let's take a look at one such laptop. So this is a TUF Dash F15 from Asus, and it sports an Intel Core i7-11370H, a GeForce RTX 3050 Ti with a 60W TGP that can get up to 75W with dynamic boost, 16GB of RAM running at 3200MHz, and 1TB of PCIe NVMe SSD storage. So this is our first experience with the GeForce RTX 3050 Ti, and it's pretty much basically an entry-level GPU. Now, to be noted, the TUF Dash F15 is available in a number of configurations, and it can be outfitted with the standard RTX 3050 all the way up to an RTX 3070. But of course, today we are a little bit more budget conscious, and so let's quickly dive straight into the performance and talk a little bit more about what that RTX 3050 Ti has to offer. First up, Cinebench R23. With the TUF Dash F15 being a pretty slim laptop, Asus has decided to equip it with the Core i7-11370H, which is a CPU that has 4 cores and 8 threads. Using the balanced profile via Armoury Crate, it can achieve a multi-core score of about 6300 and a single core score just shy of 1500. Switching to the turbo profile provides slightly higher scores in multi-core, while the single core performance remains the same. Temperatures are also pretty well maintained, with that Core i7-11370H usually hovering around the 90°C mark on either power profiles. While temperature remains the same, the differences between them would be the power draw, the sustained clock speeds, and fan noise. Now, talking about video editing in DaVinci Resolve, the quad-core i7 and RTX 3050 Ti combo managed to render the 10-minute 1080p project in just about real time, while the 15-minute 4K project definitely took way longer, at about half an hour. As you can also tell between the two power profiles, the render speeds aren't that much different. Temperatures while rendering using either power profiles were pretty great as well. The CPU generally hovers in the mid-80s while the GPU stays in a really comfortable 70s. All in all, I would say that it's not surprising that performance for creative applications isn't that amazing. After all, that CPU is just 4 cores and 8 threads. But now let's talk about gaming, which arguably will be what you'll be doing quite a lot of with this laptop. Testing our usual list of games at 1080p high settings, you can expect pretty decent results with that RTX 3050 Ti. AAA titles like Shadow of the Tomb Raider or Battlefield 5 are perfectly enjoyable at 60 frames per second, while esports titles like CSGO and Apex can hit well above 100 frames per second and above 60 frames per second respectively. Now, if you switch over to the turbo profile, while you do get a slight increase in frames, it isn't much if at all. Most of the time, we only notice about a 3 to 5 frames increase. Now, it's still technically better, just not as much as we thought it would be. If you do run the laptop off an external monitor, thereby forcing it to run on dedicated graphics alone, you do get yet slightly better performance, but still not that much. If you really like your realistic lighting and shadows, we would say that this GPU is definitely not something that will live up to your expectations. Even with DLSS turned on, performance isn't really great, and that's even including DLSS 2.0 where you can choose different tiers of it. In our honest opinion, just take it that this is a GTX card and not an RTX one. As for temperatures while gaming, you needn't worry. The CPU is usually hovering in the mid 80°C range, while the GPU is usually below 80. Really good temperatures under load with reasonable fan noise as well. But now, we do have to mention a slight peculiarity that we did mention during our test. As mentioned earlier, the RTX 3050 Ti in this laptop has a 60W TGP, but can get up to 75W with dynamic boost. This is also clearly stated on the Asus website. As of this recording, we have the latest BIOS and the latest NVIDIA drivers. Throughout our testing on any of the profiles and especially turbo, we've noticed that while the RTX 3050 Ti does indeed achieve that full 75W, it doesn't sustain it. After just about a minute or two, it would ramp back down and hover around 60 to 65W instead. Thus, the numbers aren't as fantastic as another laptop which has a proper 75W RTX 3050 Ti. Also to note, our model has 16GB of RAM soldered on, running in single channel, which would have played a part in the performance numbers as well. With all that said, the overall performance is still really decent, and if you're just looking at an entry-level gaming experience at 1080p with a mixture of high and medium settings, this is still going to provide a really enjoyable gaming experience. On that note, let's talk about everything else on this TUF Dash F15 that really makes it quite the good overall package. The first thing you will notice is the minimalistic design. It's really slick and devoid of the usual gamer aesthetic, and we really do like it. It's basically a laptop that you can bring to a meeting table and not stand out at all. And that's something that you can actually also easily do since the laptop has a relatively reasonable weight of just about 2 kilograms. As for the typing and trackpad experience, it's standard affair for an Asus laptop. Good amount of travel and tactility, all the important keys are sized appropriately, and you even get dedicated keys for volume, microphone, and armory crate. While you don't get RGB, Asus has decided to go with a teal color, and in our opinion, looks really nice and soothing, giving the laptop a little bit of character while not being overbearing. The trackpad itself also performs great and is of a decent size, not much to dislike here. The same can be said for the speakers as well. The pair of 2-watt speakers are located on the underside at the corners, and they actually do sound good for such a laptop, which was a nice surprise. We were also equally surprised at the battery life as well, for we could easily achieve almost 8 hours of actual use with it with that 76 Wh battery. Ports wise, they are located on the sides, and you get a total of 3 standard USB 3.2 Gen 1, RJ45 Ethernet, HDMI 2.0B, Thunderbolt 4, and of course the 3.5mm combo jack. As for upgrade options, you do get access to a secondary slot for another PCIe NVMe SSD, as well as an empty SODIMM slot. Since the 16GB of RAM on our model is soldered on board and running on single channel, upgrading to 32GB of RAM is simple, and you will also be able to then run on dual channel as well, which should see some performance improvements. But now at this point, you might have noticed that I've yet to cover some important aspects of a laptop, and this is where it gets a little bit disappointing. The display. There are a total of 3 display options for the TUF Dash F15, but which one you will get will be determined by which GPU option you go for. Now of all 3 options, 2 of them are great. One is not that great. And unfortunately, if you're looking at the RTX 3050 or the 3050 Ti option, you'll be getting the one that's not that great. 15.6 inches, 1080p, IPS, 144Hz, 62.5% sRGB coverage, and about 300 nits in max brightness. As you can already tell, the color coverage is where this display is severely lacking. If all you're going to do is game, it's still going to be great, and that 144Hz is arguably far more important. But anything apart from that, media consumption, photo or video editing, you might find it really lacking or flat out unusable. Also to mention is that you don't get a webcam here. It may or may not be a deal breaker depending on your use case. However, overall, we would still say the TUF Dash F15 from Asus is a really decent package, especially if you're just looking for an entry-level gaming experience without breaking the bank. If you're in the US and you're looking at this specific variant of the TUF Dash F15, you can grab it for about $1,050 from the Asus store on Amazon. Though do note that that model only comes with 8GB of RAM instead of 16GB, but the rest of the specs are the same. Here in Singapore, however, we have this exact variant with 16GB of RAM, but the price isn't that great, coming in at just under 2200 Singapore dollars, direct from the Asus store. If you're in Singapore and you really want this laptop, perhaps you can just buy from the Amazon US store instead and then ship it over. Even after including shipping fees and the 7% GST that we have here, it's still far cheaper at about 1600 Singapore dollars after conversion. That might just be a big brain move. But for all of you guys elsewhere or in the US, for just about $1,000, the TUF Dash F15 from Asus will provide you with quite the enjoyable entry-level gaming experience, and again, without breaking the bank. Well, if you have any questions, let us know in the comment section down below. If you'd like to, do check out the affiliate links in the description as well. If you do, thanks for support. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Till the next one. See ya!